and putting it in the music, it kind of just gets very bland. Like, this is the reason why people go to LA and get strung out on drugs. People lose themselves.
Yo.
We are Levi's Wise Guys.
Check out the full podcast, link below.
Is it still pivotal for artists to blow up locally before going commercial? So I saw a brief clip online that had Rich Paul, which is, he's a famous agent at this point in sports. He's dating Adele, longtime friends with LeBron James, from Cleveland, all of that. And he was sitting down with Jake Paul. And I didn't realize he was from Cleveland as well. And they were having a conversation about Cleveland pride. Then Kid Cudi's name came up. And they were talking about how Kid Cudi never embraced Cleveland and Cleveland never embraced Kid Cudi.
Do I think how Cudi treats Cleveland is weird? No, because I don't think Cleveland ever embraced Cudi. You can't expect somebody to treat a situation any different than how they were treated.
I just have to say it for Cleveland. I think he switched up and just
Why?
was
What has happened with Cudi?
He just acts like he's not from there, and no one even really knows that. And then doesn't tap in with the people. Got big and all the OGs are damn, he didn't.
Well, I don't. Yeah, of my experience, I've never seen him in Cleveland like that.
Yeah, he's never.
Where did he grow up at?
Cleveland pride is the biggest thing in the world.
Oh, it's a huge thing.
And
I bleed Cleveland, so it's not even a question about it.
Cudi ended up becoming a icon in the rap community for what he was able to do, obviously. But what's interesting about Cudi is he's one of the few people that I can think of in recent memory, at least in the early 2000s, that blew up, but you don't really associate where he's from to his stardom. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like more and more these days, you're kind of seeing that, where you're seeing all these rappers and you're not really seeing where they're from. You don't see it in the way that they make music. You don't see it in their aesthetic. You don't see it in sort of what they're repping. They don't even rep it half the time. And I'm like, bro, in reality these days, is it even important for artists to kind of blow up locally, have that grassroots movement before taking off? Or is the internet so powerful now that your music can be placed online like Kid Cudi's was back in the blog era, and it can take off? What do you think?
First off, I want to say Kid Cudi had Cleveland as the reason. That's one of the first songs he came out with during that mixtape, A Kid Named Cudi. And I think Cleveland is the reason ended up being the anthem for one of their sports teams, right? So he has done his part to rep Cleveland in his music, and his songs have had an impact on Cleveland. I do want to mention that. From an outside looking in, we're DMVers. From an outside looking in, we can sit here and say, Kid Cudi, we didn't know really where he came from, this, that, blah, 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 blah. But the people actually in Cleveland would actually know the impact he had. So
they'll be able to speak on it.
It was notable. Yeah, it was notable hearing Rich Paul say that say it in public. It almost felt like a diss, saying he was irrelevant kind of to Cleveland. That's kind of how I took it. But there's certain people that a city connects with, right? A city connects with their come up story. For instance, Ludacris repped Atlanta, but his impact in Atlanta is not the same as T.I.'s. T.I.'s felt like it embodied the city, while Ludacris felt more universal. You know what I mean? There's plenty of his DC, right? Wale feels like a DC DMV artist.
For sure.
While a guy like Logic feels like a universal artist and never gets associated as being a DMV. I don't think, it has to do with an artist not being liked or an artist, not repping where they're from. There's just some artists that embody where they came from, And in the case with Kid Cudi, I'm not exactly sure he embodies what Cleveland came from. I'm not from Cleveland. Rich Paul can probably speak on it, but I think if I were to guess, that's where he was coming from with that comment. You know what I mean?
No, but that's an interesting twist. I mean, we could really switch this topic question to be, is it important for an artist to embody where they come from? But to address what you were just saying, I think they were actually getting at the first point, which was he didn't rep Cleveland, and they said that people from Cleveland are very prideful about being from Cleveland. So they were like, he never really put that on his back like that.
But he
and
did
also
say,
the city,
a kid named Cudi, he said
Well, but-
Cleveland is the reason.
but you
Cleveland.
But you also said that people from the city would be able to speak on it more than somebody from the outside.
Exactly. That's what.
So
but it depends
it's
on how you rep it.
Right.
Like for instance, Logic mentions Gaithersburg all the time. Logic mentions it.
Yeah.
Hey man, I'm from Gaithersburg, but like people still don't really associate it. Music has now become, you know, when you blow up, you go to LA, or before you blow up, you go to LA. Like every single artist you know that's popping is in LA. That's
point.
the world we're living in right
point.
now. Back in the day, it used to be like, you know, what was the biggest metropolitan area? I'm going to attach to that. So if New York is the biggest metropolitan area, I'm attached to that. If I'm DC, I'm going to attach to New York.
Yep.
If I'm in the West Coast, I'm going to attach to LA. If I'm in Texas, I'm going to attach, or in that Midwest area, I'm going to attach to Chicago. Now everybody just goes to LA.
I'm of the belief that it's more beneficial for artists to rep where they come from more so than it isn't. And the reason why I'm saying that is because, there's something about slang and culture and the way you talk and what you look like and telling your story about your origins and where you come from, which is what makes fans buy into you in the first place a lot of times. Obviously, you got to be making good music, and that's step one. Yeah. But like people like the story. A lot of times your come up story comes from where you're from. So when all of these dudes and women, obviously, and just people in the industry, like before they blow up and they go to LA, like I feel like they're like diminishing and not really kind of like bringing their culture and putting it in the music. It kind of just gets very bland. Like this is the reason why people go to LA and get strung out on drugs and a whole lot of just weird stuff people talk about that happens in LA and in New York. Yeah. Like people lose themselves. And I'm going to be honest, some of my favorite artists, I know exactly where they're from. Like, whether it's, like, I'm talking about even the young crop, whether it's, like, I think about, like, 21 Savage. It's very clear where he's from.
London.
Hey, yeah, actually, yeah. Technically, he's from there. He's from Atlanta. That shit means something in his music. You could tell he reps it. Yeah. You know, Future, it means something that he comes from Atlanta. Yeah. You know, but one of the interesting people is I thought about like XXXTentacion. He's from like Florida, and like you never really kind of like heard him really rep that in his music. He was very ambiguous when it came to like where he's from. So I do think like you can still make it as an artist, but for me as a listener, I always love when artists rep where they from. Well, I think it means something. I think they wear it on their back as part of their aesthetic in the music.
In this day and age, like artists aren't repping anything. They're not repping where they're from. They're not repping their religion like you.
They're repping their religion.
They're not rep. People don't rep their religion. People ain't saying they Christian anymore.
Hey, bro.
Like they used to. The world is as equal as it's ever been, and it's because of social media. Somebody in Imo State, Nigeria, can see what somebody is doing in New York and try to emulate it on social media. And you just can't tell nowadays where everybody is from because everybody sees the same things on social media. Doesn't necessarily care. We don't care where it came from. Everybody sees the same things. So it's more uniform, more than ever. Like there's jits that are the same everywhere. The world is just more uniform than it's ever been.
I'm with you. Internet has flattened out the earth.
No longer
local. But there's something to repping where you from. Like
even
look at YoungBoy. YoungBoy's still making them damn bounce records that the masses don't really care about. Like when he get into that same old them beats. Like, bro, that's like Baton Rouge. That's literally Baton Rouge sound. He's still trying to. He just put out a new single where it's the same thing. I'm like, bro, I've heard 1,000 of these records. Like, I like the fact that he's trying to put this shit on.
Listen to the full episode. Link below.